Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu al-atamani wal-akmalani ala khayr al-anami wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah, thumma amma ba'd. Inshallah ta'ala, we're giving a very praiseworthy translation, or I should reiterate that. We're giving a praiseworthy lecture by Shaykh Muhammad ibn Haadee al-Madkhalee, Hafidhahullah ta'ala, al-Doctor from Jazan. He did a beautiful lecture entitled Talabul Ilm fi Zamanina wa fi Zamani min Qablina, or Qablana, or something like this. The lecture he gave was about 2 weeks ago, was entitled Seeking Knowledge in Our Time and Seeking Knowledge in the Time that was before us. After listening to this lecture, me myself as the translator, I wanted to say that this has really changed my life. Just since I heard this lecture, it had a tremendous effect in my life. So much so that I just had to share it with the people so that hopefully it will have an effect on our lives, or on your lives, as it had effect on my lives, or perhaps even have a greater effect on the lives of those who are listening than it even have had upon me, and it is continuously having upon me to this very moment right now. Alhamdulillah. The Shaykh, as a synopsis or the introduction to what he talks about in this lecture, so you know what to look for, which is the reason why we titled it online, the title we gave, which is the Shaykh. He really talks about why the people who seek knowledge today don't find the success with their knowledge and great benefit with their knowledge in their lives and upon themselves and everyone around them, as we've seen when knowledge was sought by those imams, those kibar ulama who just recently died, and those that still remain, and the strong students of knowledge, how we see knowledge affect them. So in this lecture, the Shaykh, he's going to explain why we don't find success. And he breaks it down to 4 main reasons, in which he's going to give them first, and then he's going to explain each 4 of those reasons. And his lecture in Arabic was a total of 1 hour and 10 minutes. With the question and answers, it can add another 33 minutes. But we're going to not include with this the question and answers. We're just going to include the lecture. And inshallah ta'ala, we're going to translate this, and hopefully with the success of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أَنَبْتُ. That in Allah is where the success lies, and to Him I seek assistance, and to Him I return to in repentance. So inshallah ta'ala, this is basically what the Shaykh talk about. So, فَلْيَتَفَضَّلْ inshallah, ya Shaykh. So we're going to let the Shaykh go ahead.
ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها كل محدثة بدعة كل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد.
The Shaykh, He began with khutbah al-hajah, saying all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His assistance, and we seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from the evilness of our own souls and the evilness of our actions. Whomever Allah has guided, there's no one to misguide. And whomever He has misguided, there's no guide for them. And I bear witness that there's no deity worthy of worship except Allah. He is one that doesn't have any partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad is His servant and His final messenger. O you who believe, fear your Lord as He ought to be feared, and do not die except submitting to Allah. O mankind, fear your Lord, who created you from one soul, and from that soul He created His mate, and came forth from the two of them countless men and women. And fear your Lord, for whom you demand your mutual rights, and reverence the womb that bore you, for indeed Allah is an ever constant watcher over you. O you who believe, fear Allah, and say a qawlan sadida, a firm statement that agrees to la ilaha illallah, so that Allah can forgive for you your sins, and so that Allah can forgive you of your sins and mend for you your deeds, and know that whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger has indeed achieved the greatest achievement. After what follows, for indeed the most truthful of all speech is the book of Allah, and the finest guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the worst of all affairs are newly introduced matters into this deen. For every newly introduced matter into this deen is an innovation, and every innovation is misguidance, and all misguidance is in result will be the hellfire.
فإن مثل هذه اللقاءات التي يمن الله سبحانه وتعالى بها على الإخوة، ومثل هذه الاجتماعات التي ييسر الله سبحانه وتعالى السبيل إليها، فيتذاكر فيها ويستفاد من الوقت فيها، لهي من الساعات التي يحتسبها الإنسان عند الله جل وعلا.
The Shaykh Muhammad ibn Haadee al-Madkhalee, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us and bestowed bounty upon us for us to come together in this gathering, in this meeting. A gathering and meeting in which much benefit is taken in it, in which Allah bestowed the brothers to come together upon, in which benefit is taken from, and knowledge is taken in these gatherings. And these are the type of gatherings that we've been encouraged upon.
لأنها تكون في ذكر وعلى ذكر.
That is because these gatherings, you find in them Allah is remembered. Allah is remembered. And that the remembrance in itself is where the benefit lies.
وإنه لا يسرني في هذا اللقاء أن أتحدث عن أمر مهم جدا وليس بغريب ولا بجديد.
He says, it pleases me to talk about a subject matter that is very, very important. To talk about a subject matter that is very, very important. And to talk about this subject matter is something that is not new subject matter that was talked about. Nor is the subject matter that is not new or is not a discussion that is not a new discussion.
قد سبقت الإشارة إليه عندكم هنا في بعض اللقاءات في الرياض وفي غير الرياض أيضا.
He said in this type of gatherings, previously talked about right here in this particular place under the same type of circles of knowledge. And that this subject matter and talking about the circles of knowledge, talking about in this circles of knowledge, is something that has taken place here before in Riyadh. So obviously the Shaykh is in Riyadh. And in other than Riyadh.
نكرر الكلام فيه لأنه من باب التذاكر والتذكير.
And we're going to repeat this subject matter in which we said has been talked about here before. Why? Because this subject matter is something we're doing because it falls under the issue of reminders.
وفيه حث لنا جميعا. ذلكم الأمر.
And that talking about this subject matter also falls under the subject matter of how to incite and encourage the people upon something that is important.
هو ما يتردد دائما وأبدا عن قضية وفي قضية طلب العلم.
And that subject matter is an issue that is again constantly reiterated and spoken about. And that's the subject matter or the issue of seeking knowledge
وتحصيله.
and how to obtain it.
والفرق بيننا وبين الأولين رحم الله من مات منهم ووفق ونفع بمن بقي.
And this subject matter of talking about seeking knowledge, the Shaykh says, is a subject matter that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted success. He said that this subject matter is a subject matter that you find it is a farqun kabir, a great difference between us in regards to seeking knowledge and those first foremost scholars, those who have recently passed from amongst the major scholars. May Allah have mercy upon them. And those scholars who still remain, may Allah grant them success and continue to bring much benefit from them. Ameen.
من أشياخنا. فنحن نرى الفارق العظيم بين من درسنا عليهم من الشيوخ المشاهير والعلماء الكبار، نرى الفارق بينهم وبين من جاء من بعدهم.
The Shaykh says, you find that those scholars who just recently passed us, the Mashaykh, those who are well known to us, the major scholars, we see in the likes of them and those who came after them seeking knowledge a major difference between them.
نرى الفارق واضحا، وذلك بعد ذهاب كثير من الكبار وقلة من بقي منهم.
And you find that there's a clear difference between them and us. Those scholars, those who have passed on, those major scholars, the kibar, those major scholars, those ones who left us, and the ones that still remain, a clear, tremendous difference.
فنرى الفارق بينهم وبين من جاء بعدهم واضحا.
We see a tremendous difference between them and us who came after them.
كما نرى الفارق أيضا بين طلبة العلم الظاهرين البارزين، نراه بينهم واضحا، وفيما بينهم تفاوت كبير.
And just as you see what the students of knowledge, the firmly strong, those who have firm and strong knowledge, from the students of knowledge who are well known, who are obvious and triumphant with their knowledge, we see a tremendous difference, a clear difference between them and those after them, and we see many levels and differences with them from amongst themselves also.
وهنا السؤال الذي يطرح، وهو ما السبب الذي جعل هؤلاء يختلفون عن العلماء الأولين.
Now, there's a question that comes and that's thrown at us. And that question is, what is the reason that caused this big difference, this clear separation between those scholars, from the first of the scholars who just recently passed, and those who came after them? What is the reason why there's a major difference between them and us?
والمشايخ السابقين مع أنهم كثير منهم تراه درس.
And since that you find that many of those major scholars, the Shaykh, those scholars who you find many people came and studied from them, an abundance of people who came and sat with them, you still see this major difference between the major scholars who first major scholars who have passed and those few who remain. You see a big difference between those who come and sat with them, in spite of the fact many have come and sat with them.
في حلق المشايخ وجلس على المشايخ، ولكن يمر عليه من عمره عقود ولا يزال في تحصيله في ضعف.
To the point you find that many individuals came and sat at the feet of these major scholars, taking from their knowledge, taking from them, benefiting from them. And to the point, many of them have spent an uqud, many years, much periods of time sitting with these major scholars, but yet, when it comes to their tahsil, their obtainment of knowledge from them, you find in it is ba'f, weakness.
فما السبب في هذا؟
So he said, what is the reason for this?
وقد تأملت بحسب اجتهادي ونظري مع ضعفي وعجزي وتقصيري.
He said, in myself, I thought and reflected on this subject matter over and over again, in spite of the fact, doing this with my weak knowledge and my weak capability. I reflected on this subject matter. What is this reason?
الكثير تأملت فإذا الأسباب في نظري تنحصر في 4 أسباب.
The Shaykh said, and I كثير تأملت, many times have I reflected about this subject matter. In abundance, I've reflected about this subject matter. And in my view, and in my opinion, I've come up and 4 limited reasons why we can't achieve like those scholars who have passed us by have achieved.
السبب الأول,
the first reason,
اختلاف الطريقة التي نسلكها اليوم.
He said, the first reason is the difference of how, or the path. The difference is, number 1, is in the path and the way that we take today.
عن طريقة المشايخ الأولين في التلقي.
In regards to how to obtain knowledge, how it differs tremendously from the way of those foremost scholars who just passed us. That's the first main reason. Again, the Shaykh says the first reason is the ikhtilaf, the difference in the way or the methodology or the path in which we take today, that it differs from the path of those first foremost scholars who just passed us on.
والثاني,
the Shaykh says the second reason,
الفتور والملل والسآمة التي تطرأ.
he said the second reason is slacking, the weariness, and the giving up, losing faith and giving up,
التي تطرأ
in which occurs and happens
على أحدنا أثناء التلقي.
that happens to each and every one of us during the time we're trying to obtain knowledge. Again, the futur, the slacking, right? The melal, the giving, the becoming weary and tired, and the sa'ama, giving up, that falls upon us when any one of us is trying to be upon the path of seeking knowledge.
فربما انقطع بالكلية وربما ضعف.
Perhaps you will see that one of us in his path of seeking knowledge, when he's afflicted with this weariness, this tiredness, and this slacking, he may perhaps totally cut himself off from seeking knowledge, or he'll become da'af, extremely weak in his seeking of knowledge.
والثالث إيثار الدعة والراحة.
He said the third reason, remember these the difference between us and those scholars who passed us on. He said the third reason is the influence of giving up, wanting to live in a relaxed situation.
على التعب إيثار الدعة والراحة على التعب في طلب العلم وتحصيله.
Again, the third reason is the influence over us of giving up, of the comfort zones, of being relaxed, and being comfortable. That influencing us over wearing oneself out in the path of obtaining knowledge. Again, the third reason is the heavy influence of giving up, or the preference of giving up. Let's put it that way. The preference of giving up, the preference of having relaxation in one's life over wearing oneself out in the path of obtaining knowledge.
الرابع.
The fourth reason,
الله أعلم.
and Allah knows best
في هذا
in regards to this reason.
وأمره إلى الله.
And this matter of this fourth reason is an affair that is all in the hand, all with Allah.
هو أمر قلبي.
And that fourth reason is the affair of the heart. Is the affair of the heart.
اختلاف المقاصد عند الأولين وعندنا نحن المتأخرين.
And that is the big difference in the heart of the purpose behind seeking knowledge. The intent behind seeking knowledge between us and those foremost scholars who just passed us.
إلا من رحم الله.
Except for the ones whom Allah has shown mercy upon amongst us.
فهذه أربعة أسباب.
For these are the four main reasons, in my view, are the causes behind us not achieving like they did.
ولنبدأ من الأول من الآخر وهو الرابع. فهذا الأمر.
We shall begin, he said, from the first reason. The fourth reason. We shall begin from the fourth reason.
هو الذي عالجه الأولون.
It is this fourth reason, the affair of the heart. You find that it is a subject matter that the first foremost scholars, they medicated it and gave it its dose and its medication that it needed.
ونصح فيه الناصحون.
And those scholars, those foremost scholars, they have given the advice in regards to this subject matter. The sincere advice.
وبوبوا فيه التبويبات الكثيرة.
To the point they have chaptered in their books, many books and many chapters on this subject matter of the purpose in the heart behind seeking knowledge.
في إخلاص النية.
In regards to having ikhlas in the niyyah, sincerity in one's intent.
لله رب العالمين.
Making it for Allah, the Lord of all that which exists.
أن يكون مقصوده بهذا العلم وطلبه له.
Making Allah the reason behind one seeking knowledge. Desiring Allah, and He's the one behind the reason for seeking knowledge and trying to obtain it.
وجه العلي الأعلى.
The face of Allah, the highest and the exalted.
الرب سبحانه وتعالى.
The Lord, the glorified and the exalted.
لأن هذا العلم دين.
This is because this knowledge, it is deen.
والله جل وعز.
Allah, the sublime and the sublime and the mighty says,
قد أمر بالإخلاص فيه.
or He has commanded with being sincere, giving sincerity.
فقال جل وعلا وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين.
Allah, the Mighty, the Sublime, He says, they have not been commanded except to worship Allah sincerely, making the deen for Him, sincerely for Him, and being hunafa, those who turn away from everything else other than Allah and inclines towards Allah, or those who turn away from shirk and turn towards tawheed.
والتعلم للعلوم التي يراد بها وجه الله.
And that is in regard to learning the sciences in which is connected to that which will draw one to the closeness closer to Allah.
والدار الآخرة.
And draw one to the abode of the hereafter.
لا تطلب إلا ليصاب بها الدنيا.
It is not to be sought after, whereas one can obtain something from the worldly life.
يحرم صاحبها البركة.
Because if that happens, the one who does that will be deprived of his knowledge having blessings, being blessed
في الدنيا.
in the worldly life.
فلا ينال هذا العلم.
He will never obtain this knowledge. He will not obtain this knowledge.
فلا يوفق إليه.
Nor will he be granted success towards seeking knowledge.
وإن وفق إلى تحصيل شيء منه متوعد في الآخرة والعياذ بالله.
And if he is granted something of success in this life of knowledge, he will be threatened with being punished in the hereafter because his intention wasn't good.
من تعلم علما
Whoever seeks knowledge
مما يبتغى به وجه الله
in regards to that which only Allah should be done for the sake of Allah, for seeking the pleasure of Allah.
لا يتعلمه إلا ليصيب به عرضا من الدنيا.
And the person only really sought it, only desiring in it some commodity of the dunya,
لم يرى رائحة الجنة.
he will not smell the fragrance of Jannah, meaning he won't enter the Jannah.
والثلاثة الذين تسعر بهم جهنم أول ما تسعر.
As the Prophet he said also, the first of the people in which the hellfire will be kindled with.
منهم الذي قرأ القرآن.
From them is the one who read the Quran, recited the Quran,
ليقال قارئ.
in order that it may be said about him that he is a reciter.
وقد قيل.
And it will be said about him.
فحظه من الدنيا ثناء الناس عليه.
And the only portion he got from the dunya for his reciting the Quran is the praise of the people over him, saying that he's a reciter.
والآن زيادة على الثناء والوجاهة أن يطلبه للرياسة.
Subhanallah al-Azim, Subhanallah al-Azim, Subhanallah al-Azim, Allahu Akbar. The Shaykh says something that is of great benefit. Catch this one. He said, there's an extra point being made here in this hadith of the Prophet. For the person who recited the Quran, so that the people can say that he was a reciter, and his only reward he's going to get in the hereafter is that, only thing he's going to get is that will be said, that he was a reciter. He said there's an extra point benefit in this, or extra thing that comes here. He said, and that is looking for status. A person looking for status in doing that act for that purpose. And that leads to really wanting leadership over the people. Wanting control and leadership over the people.
للمناصب للولايات.
Wanting status, lofty position, control, leadership.
فهذه مصيبة عظيمة.
But this is a tremendous affliction.
ولذلك ينزع الله جل وعلا بركة هذا العلم.
And so, because of this, Allah strips and removes the blessings of that individual's knowledge.
فتجد هذا المتعلم إذا تولى الولاية ووصل إلى ما يريد.
You'll see this particular person, when he goes to seek his knowledge and learn it, once he obtained his objectives behind seeking that knowledge or seeking position,
مما خطط له,
in which he had planned out for himself,
أصبح كالعوام.
He automatically starts to become, once he obtained what he wanted for that knowledge, he automatically أصبح كالأنعام. He becomes like the common people. He becomes like the common people. All of a sudden. He's no more who he was with his knowledge. Once he obtained what was the reason and purpose behind his knowledge, he became like a common person. The Shaykh will explain what he means by that.
إذا دخل في هذه الوظائف عاد بعد مدة شبه عامي.
So once he enters into this responsibility or the entrance into this job, or this particular position he sought was the reason behind seeking his knowledge, just like that he becomes like a common person.
فيبقى ليس له إلا أنه قرأ وتخرج.
To the point, only thing that people see from this man is that he went to a university to study and he graduated. And he can read. That's it. He can recite. That's it. He got what he wanted. That's all can be said about this individual.
ولكن أين ذهب علمه؟
But however, where did the man's knowledge go? Where did his knowledge go?
مقصده منه هذه الوظيفة.
Because this was the purpose behind his seeking knowledge, was that job.
والولاية.
Or that leadership.
والرئاسة.
Or that control.
ولست بحاجة إلى أن أضرب الأمثال فالمناصب والولايات تعج بالأدلة والشواهد في كل مكان.
He said this is a point that we need not to give no examples for. Because this is something that you find all over the place. With many people who went to study and get knowledge. That be their case. All over the place.
ما هو في بلادنا في العالم الإسلامي كله.
He said, look at our country here, and he in Saudi Arabia. Look at our country right here in Saudi Arabia. And look at every Islamic country all over the place.
وعليه فمن كان همه هذا يكون هذا السبب منقطعا ببلوغه إلى هذه الولاية. فإذا وصل الولاية انتهى.
He said this individual, you find that this is something that he was the purpose behind what he did. And then when he achieves what he desires, he cut off seeking his knowledge. Because that was the reason why he wanted that position, or why he sought knowledge, to get that particular job or position or status or friendship or loyalty with this particular group. Is that this individual, once he get it, he cuts off his knowledge seeking.
ينقطع.
He stops.
أما من كان همه العلم.
But as for the person who makes his intentions knowledge,
ليرفع عن نفسه الجهل.
with the purpose of wanting to raise from himself ignorance,
ويمتثل قول الله تعالى وقل ربي زدني علما.
This is the person who benefited from the statement of Allah Jalla wa Ala, قل ربي زدني علما. Say, oh my Lord, increase me in knowledge.
فأمر بطلب الازدياد.
Allah here is commanding him with seeking the increasement
من هذا العلم
in this knowledge.
فهذا لا ينتهي.
But this type of servant who does this, he never stops seeking knowledge.
منهومان لا يشبعان.
He quotes the statement of the Prophet, منهومان لا يشبعان. Avarice, never ever satisfied, are two type of people. Avarice, never ever satisfied, are two type of people.
كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم.
As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said,
طالب علم,
the seeker of knowledge,
وطالب دنيا,
and the seeker of the dunya.
فكما أن صاحب الدنيا في تحصيلها يجهد نفسه.
To the point you will see the one who's seeking after this dunya, he will wear himself out seeking that dunya.
وربما أتعب صحته.
Perhaps he may go to the extent that he will wear out his own health.
واستنفذ كل طاقته ووقته في جمع حطام الدنيا. فهكذا من ذاق حلاوة العلم.
He said this person will go to the extent that he will spend all of his capability, all of his know-how in seeking that dunya. And likewise, you find this the case of the person who seeks knowledge of a book of this deen. That be his case. Because he has tasted the sweetness of knowledge.
يذهب جميع وقته.
He will use every portion of his time that he has in his life.
ويجهد نفسه.
He will wear his own self out.
ويحملها المشاق.
And then he will take the difficulties and carry the hardship that comes with seeking that knowledge.
ويجشمها الصعاب في سبيل ازدياده من هذا العلم.
And he will use up all of his capabilities and all of what he has of finance, everything he got, for the purpose of seeking this knowledge.
فلا تراه إلا مطالعا.
You will not see this individual except that he's reading,
مذاكرا.
studying,
باحثا.
researching,
محققا.
investigating and correcting books, explaining books,
مدرسا.
teaching the people.
وهذا حال أشياخنا الأولين الذين أدركناهم.
This was the condition in case of those Shaykh in which we have reached in our time who have passed us on. This is their case.
جاءتهم الوظائف
Comes to them jobs and opportunities,
والمسؤوليات راغمة.
and comes to them jobs and opportunities and positions and responsibilities relentlessly without them wanting them.
بحث من يقوم بالفتيا؟
It's looked. Who can we find to make futya legal verdicts?
فما وجد إلا هؤلاء.
And can't we find no one but these individuals?
هم أهلها.
And because they are the people who have the right for that.
نظر وإذا بأهل الفتيا هؤلاء.
And then you'll look, then you see they are the people giving the legal verdicts.
من يقوم بالقضاء؟ نظر فإذا الفقهاء هؤلاء.
Then we look, we need judges to make verdicts. And then you find that they're the only ones to come out there to make judgment for the people.
من يقوم بالتدريس؟ نظر فإذا أهل العلم هؤلاء.
Then we look, it's looks. Who can we find to educate and teach the people? And then there's no one there, suddenly except that, it is them to teach the people.
من يقوم بالدعوة؟ نظر فإذا به هؤلاء.
Then it is look. Who will establish the da'wah? And then suddenly you'll see it be them that's the ones that's establishing the da'wah.
ولذلك أكثر هؤلاء ولوا المناصب عن غير رغبة منهم.
He said for that reason, you find that these individuals were given these status and these positions and responsibilities without wanting it or desiring it whatsoever.
وأجبروا على توليها على كره منهم.
And they were individuals who were forced to take these individuals, done by them out of force, not because they wanted it or desired it.
بينما نحن اليوم
Whereas you look at us today,
نتحارب عليها ونطلب العلم للوصول إليها.
we wage war against each other to get a position or to take status.
فعياذا بالله في ذلك. فهذا أول نزع هذه البركة، لأنه يتخلى الرب جل وعلا عنك ويكلك إلى نفسك فلا يوفقك ولا يسددك.
This is nothing but ruin for us when we do stuff like this. You find this is a result because Allah has abandoned us. He has left us to our own selves. This person not granted success, you find, in his knowledge and what he has obtained whatsoever, because Allah has left him.
وهذا العلم نور ونور الله لا يؤتاه عاصي.
This knowledge is a light in which he is not given to the one who's disobedient.
ففرق بين الحالين كما هو فرق بين السماء والأرض.
So looking at the differences between these two cases is like looking at the difference between the heaven and the earth. Between those two cases, meaning of the one who seeks the knowledge to gain status in the dunya and the one who seeks knowledge to raise ignorance from himself and from others. He said the conditions of these two states, the difference between them is like the difference between the heavens and the earth.
طلبوه لله خدموا هذا الدين فخدمتهم الدنيا.
These scholars were individuals who you find that they served this deen. So what happened? The dunya served them. They served this deen, so the dunya served them.
أما الصنف الثاني فجعلوا العلم حيلة يصطادون بها الدنيا.
You find that as for this second type of people, they was individuals who took this dunya took this knowledge as a stratagem to obtain the dunya.
يا جاعل العلم له باديا.
Oh, he quotes a line of poetry. I'm going to have problem translating. He said, oh, ignorant person of knowledge. Oh, ignorant person of knowledge who become outspoken and seem to have knowledge. Something like this.
يصطاد أموال المساكين.
You take the wealth untrustworthily from the poor people.
هذا يصطاد بالعلم الناس.
He said, this person, He takes advantage with his knowledge of the people to take from them.
يصطاد به الوجاهات بين الناس، يصطاد به المناصب بين الناس.
He uses this knowledge to take advantage to get a position and status, or a job, or a special place with the people, not for the reasons the ulama have.
فهذا الذي لا يوفق.
This is the one who won't be granted success with his seeking of knowledge.
وهذا الذي يوكل إلى نفسه.
This is the person who will be left to handle his own responsibilities of himself. Not Allah won't leave him like this.
كما قال عبد الله بن مبارك رحمه الله في هذه الأبيات.
This is just as Abdullah ibn Mubarak has said in this line of poetry. Inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala grant me success in translating.
يا جاعل العلم له بازيا، يعني فقر البازي يصطاد أموال المساكين.
He said, O individual who has made knowledge as a means to be obvious with it, to take advantage of the people.
احتلت للدنيا ولذاتها.
You have obtained the dunya and its beauties and what it offers.
بحيلة تذهب بالدين.
But with this stratagem, you have lost your deen.
أين رواياتك في سردها؟
Where's your narrations to support you in this act?
وفي لفظ في ذمها.
In the blameworthiness of this act.
عن ابن عون وابن سيرين.
From Ibn Awn and Ibn Sirini.
فصرت مجنونا بها بعدما.
This person becomes the opposite of pure knowledge and pure scholars. This individual becomes opposite of that and becomes something evil or something like this.
كنت دواء للمجانين.
You was an individual who did this and obtained what you obtained. And you are an individual who did what you did and has become those of the majanini, the crazy people, who lost his mind because his purposes is evil. This is what this individual becomes.
إن قلت أكرهت فما ذاك ذا ذل حمار العلم في الطين.
He said this individual has become nothing but like a donkey carrying books, taking from the dirt or something like this.
ففرق بين النيتين وبين القصدين عند الأولين وعندنا.
He says this is a tremendous difference between the two intentions of that group and of us and the scholars who have passed us on that just left us. It's a big difference in the intentions between the two.
إلا من رحم الله جل وعلا.
Except for the ones whom Allah has shown mercy upon. جل وعلا.
فأولئك لما وصلوا المناصب علموا أنها ستحول بينهم.
Those scholars who obtained and was offered to them this dunya and these positions and lofty status, they feared that it will be something that will become between them and raising that ignorance from themselves and seeking the knowledge that they like to see, seeking the increasement that they like to see. They feared it from those positions.
وبين العلم.
It will become between them and that knowledge they saw.
وأنها كالفتنة التي تزينت لهم.
And they looked at it as nothing but a fitna that has been made beautified for them. That has been made beautified for them to take those positions.
لتصدهم عن هذا الطريق.
Because they feared it was something that will really turn them away from the path that they was upon of increasement of knowledge, of raising ignorance from themselves.
فما ازدادوا إلا مثابرة.
So all that did was when they got those positions that was forced upon them, all it did was increase them in persistency in seeking knowledge even more. It increased them in persistency, increased them in persistency in seeking their knowledge because of the fear that the Shaykh is saying that they had, that those positions may do to them, of turning them away from seeking knowledge. So all it did was make them be even more persistent in their pursuit of increasement of knowledge and raising ignorance from themselves.
ما قطعتهم مناصبهم عن العلم.
Never did these statuses and positions turn them away from seeking knowledge.
فتراهم مدرسين.
You still saw them being teachers and educators.
في الفجر. وتراهم مدرسين العصر.
You see them teaching and educators at Fajr, and teachers and educators after Salatul Asr.
وتراهم مدرسين بعد المغرب.
Then you see them teachers and educators after Maghrib. They didn't let the job stop them. They still kept seeking knowledge and teaching it.
ما قطعتهم مناصبهم عن التعلم والتعليم.
Never did those lofty positions and jobs made them stop seeking knowledge and teaching it.
فانتفعوا طوال حياتهم ونفعوا.
He says, and they paid attention and they gave notice to affairs like this the rest of their whole, the whole length of their lives. The whole length of their lives.
وهذه ميزة عظيمة لهم.
And this is a tremendous distinction about them. That's quality and characteristic that was distinguished about them.
علينا نحن.
Over us.
ولا شك أن للإخلاص أثرا عظيما في القلب.
So therefore we see now, and there's no doubt whatsoever, there is a tremendous effect of sincerity of intentions in one's life. SubhanAllah.
وأثرا عظيما في العمل.
And sincerity of intentions have a tremendous effect and influence in one's actions indeed.
فإن العمل القليل مع الإخلاص خير من الكثير الذي لا إخلاص فيه.
He said that verily a little bit of actions has a tremendous reward and effect because of the sincerity affecting it.
وأنتم ترون الجامعات والمعاهد والكليات كم تخرج وكم الفقهاء.
SubhanAllah. The Shaykh said, look, all of you see, all of these Muslim universities, all of these Muslim institutes, all of these Muslim colleges, many people graduated from them. But how many of them are fuqaha, jurists in Islam, able to make legal verdicts for the people? Many graduates, but how many is fuqaha? And we know, and it's the translator know, many people graduate yearly from these universities, but we don't see that abundance of fuqaha. That's what the Shaykh is saying.
وكم العلماء من هؤلاء؟
How many from amongst those graduates have become ulama? How many of them?
عدوا.
Count it up. Count it up, he said. عدوا. Count it up.
انظروا إلى سير أشياخنا الأولين.
He said, just look into the biographies of our Shaykh, our first scholars who just passed us on. Just look at their biographies.
متى تولوا القضاء؟
When did they become judges? Took the responsibility of judges?
متى تولوا الفتوى؟
When did they took the responsibility and charge of giving fatwa?
متى بدأوا في التدريس؟
When did they start authoring books?
في 22.
He'd be 22 years old.
وفي 25.
He'd be 25 years old.
وفي 26.
He'd be 26 years old.
وفي 30.
He'd be 30 years old.
وبعضهم توفي في 35 وقد صنف في كل فن.
He says some of them, they perhaps would only live for 35 years. And he means Shaykh al-Hakimi, al-Hafid al-Hakimi. He said some of them had only reached the age of 35 and he authored books in every science of Islam. 35 years old.
من فنون الشريعة.
From the science of Sharia.
وعلوم الآلة.
And the sciences of something else I didn't hear.
ليش؟
He said, why is this?
أن الله جل وعلا وفقهم بسبب إخلاصهم.
He says, this is because Allah Jalla wa Ala granted them success because of the reason of their sincerity of intentions. May Allah help us. Wallahi, may Allah help us.
فمن وفقه الله جل وعلا انتفع ولو قصر عمره في الوقت القصير يحصل ما لا يحصله من طال عمره على خلاف ما كان هو عليه في الوقت الكبير.
He said you will find that these scholars or people who have pure intentions, sincere intentions to Allah, they will achieve in a short period of time in their lives that which someone who is not like them with good intent and good purpose for doing this for the sake of Allah, that they wouldn't be able to achieve having a long life.
وهذا مشهود ومحسوس.
This is something that is already something that's already experienced with us. That's the haq right.
وأصحابه القريبين منا وفي عصرنا معروفون.
He said, the people that's like this, they all close to us, well known.
فهؤلاء يبارك الله لهم في أعمالهم.
These are the people who Allah has blessed them in their actions.
الأمر الآخر.
The next matter, the second matter, he said the next reason we're going to talk about, because now he's ending with the fourth reason that he began with. What the difference between them and us. With the affair of the heart. He's ending with that. He's going to move on to the next one.
وهو أول ما بدأنا هذه في الأسباب وهو إيش؟ اختلاف الطريقة المسلوكة.
He said, and that is the first subject matter, the first reason that we already mentioned. And then the Shaykh says, what is it? So I'm going to ask the brothers. What was the first reason? The first reason why we don't obtain that y'all wrote. Anybody wrote it down? Exactly. He said, and that is the difference between the path that we take today and trying to obtain knowledge from the path that those scholars that just died and passed us off from the major ones took. He said, well, we're going to talk about that now.
الطريقة المسلوكة هذه مطلب مهم.
He said, the path that they take and the methodology that was they traversed upon, this is something that is important. This is something that's very important.
فطريقتنا نحن اليوم غير طريقة الأولين.
The path that we take today and methodology we take for seeking knowledge and obtaining it today is totally different from the path that they took who just passed us on.
ذلك أن الأولين استصحبوا في العلم الطريقة الصحيحة في تحصيله.
That is because you find that those scholars, the path that they took was the correct path in seeking and obtaining knowledge.
ولأنهم أقاموه على الأمر الأول.
It's because you find that they established seeking knowledge based upon what the first generations had done.
هو الإخلاص في طلبه لله جل وعلا.
Firstly, having the sincerity in seeking their knowledge for the sake of Allah Jalla wa Ala.
فما كانوا في يوم من الأيام في عجلة من أمرهم.
Never did you find at any days from the days of their seeking of knowledge that they had hastiness with themselves in their affairs.
بل مقصدهم أن يرفعوا الجهل عن أنفسهم.
That is because, rather, you find that their maqsood, their intention, or their purpose behind their seeking knowledge was purely to raise ignorance from themselves and others.
ويتعلموا حتى يعلموا شريعة الله جل وعلا.
And to learn and seek knowledge to the point they was able to truly understand the legislation of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
وهنا ترقوا الترقي الصحيح في الطلب.
For this, here is the proper way of obtaining knowledge.
فتجد عندهم الحرص بخلافنا نحن اليوم.
You'll find with one of those scholars that we're talking about, they have real diligency, that which we don't have with us today.
الغياب عندهم عن حلق العلم قليل.
He said the passion that we got with us today for the surface of knowledge is little.
لا يكادون يغيبون عن حلق مشايخهم. إذا بدأوا معهم لا تكاد تجد الغياب عندهم.
He said you'll find some of us today, they'll go sit with the Shaykh, the Shuyukh, and then you'll find them absent a lot. They'll be with them today, and then next week they're absent.
ففيهم حرص.
So in them scholars had diligency with themselves. They had diligency.
والآن تجد الطالب يبدأ مع الشيخ ويحضر أول أسبوع وثاني أسبوع وثالث أسبوع وشهر ثم يبدأ.
He said then, you'll find one of us today, now, he'll go and sit with one of the scholars for this first week, maybe the second week, maybe the third week, maybe even the month. And then after that he's out.
ينقطع.
He stops his study.
يتقطع في حضوره حتى ينقطع.
He'll cut off his seeking and obtaining of knowledge to the point he just leave it altogether.
يتقطع حتى ينقطع.
He will cut himself off to the point he totally cut himself off. Repeating it.
فالحرص عندهم يختلف عنا تماما.
He said that their diligency differs from us with a differencing that is perfectly different from us. Meaning we are on the total opposite end of that. No diligency at all.
انكسر قلم أحدهم فقال قلم وهو يكتب محبرته أمامه بحلقة الإملاء فتباطؤوا فقال قلم بدرهم فجاءته الأقلام من كل جانب حتى لا يفوته السماع.
SubhanAllah. He said an individual, he'd go, he'd have his ink and his pen and his studying, he's doing his thing, and then next thing you know, I'll cut him off the dirham. He ain't got no money. Oh, excuse me, his pen will break. His pen will break. And that'll stop him from seeking his knowledge. I thought he said dirham. He said his pen will break, and that'll cut him off from seeking his knowledge. Barakallahu feekum. The Shaykh was saying that this individual, he'd be sitting in the dark with his ink and his pen, and his pen will break. And then he'd try to ask somebody for a pen, or he wanted to purchase a pen, and then he doesn't have the money to purchase a pen, or he didn't have the money to purchase a pen. He said, and the person, he have the dirham, he'd give him the money, dirham meaning money, for the pen, he takes the pen and he'd continue with his studies. No, barakallahu feek. I missed that. So you take his pen and continue on with it.
ما يفوت عليه من الشيخ شيء.
Won't miss him anything whatsoever of what the Shaykh was saying. He would be diligent. So this is the example he's setting for how our scholars were. Wouldn't miss him anything. He'd be diligent so that he won't miss out on nothing what the Shaykh is saying.
مما قاله.
From whatever he makes.
تفوت المجالس والشهور وينقطع.
He said us, many months have passed, periods of times have passed, and we just stop. Just leave the knowledge.
فكيف هذا يحصل؟
He said, how can this person obtain anything?
غير الحريص ما يحصل.
The person who has no diligence, he will not obtain anything.
والاجتهاد مع النفس. نحن ما عندنا اجتهاد، عندنا دعة طلب للراحة.
He said, we must have ijtihad, striving hard within ourselves. And we don't have this with us. It is a must that this exists while seeking knowledge.
أما هم فلا.
As for them, these individuals, no, you don't find this with them.
طلب العلم فكانوا يسافرون من قطر إلى قطر ومن مصر إلى مصر مع قلة ذات اليد.
He said you'll find these scholars, an example he's given to them, is that they will go seek knowledge from town to town, country to country, being persistent like this, still upon the path of seeking knowledge, in spite of the fact they had little support, little means to do so.
والفقر والفاقة. الشيخ عبد الله القرعاوي رحمه الله في عصرنا معاصر في التسعينات في 92 رحمه الله لما جاء إلى المنطقة منطقة جازان كان بعض الأيام.
The Shaykh said, in giving an example of one of the ulama of how they would travel from country to country, town to town, like this, to seek knowledge, having very little support and finances. He said, an example of Abdullah al-Qur'awi, one of the scholars from Jazan, which is southern Saudi Arabia, that he is one of our scholars who was from our time, who died in the 90s, 92. He died in 92. And then I cut it off and then continue.
الطلبة لا يجدون قوتا فيجمع من هذا يجد عند هذا كسرة من الخبز اليابس ويجد عند ذلك مثلها وعند ثالث أحسن منها وعند رابع دونها وعند خامس بين ذلك.
He said, in describing how they were as students, he said one of them may have with him maybe just a small little piece of dry bread with him, right? And maybe the other one over here, he may have one better than that. Or one over here may have one better than this one. Or maybe this one have one worse than that one. But they would take it, this little bit, and use that in their path of seeking. Or they'll put it all together and make it work out.
فكان كما يخبرنا الوالد والأعمام يجمعها منهم جميعا ويكسرها لهم كما نكسر نحن اليوم الخبز الجاف للغنم فيجعلها بينهم فيأكلون.
He said, and then what they would do with one another, they would gather what they had from their means, and they probably may have a ghanam, like some sheep or something like this, and they would use that, prepare it, and they share with one another, so that they could keep upon their path of seeking knowledge. And just showing how they had very little, but they still did it. This is the example he's making.
وصبروا على ذلك.
And they were patient upon whatever they had.
وحصلوا.
And they obtained knowledge.
الآن انظر إلى ما أنت فيه من الراحة التي لا يمكن أن تصفها.
He said, look, what many of us we want of comfort and enjoyment, relaxation. This is something that hinders us. أليس كذلك؟
لا تستطيع وصفها ومع ذلك ما فيه.
He said, we're unable to do it except having these things. So we don't find nothing in our knowledge. No blessings, no success.
النهار من الفجر يقرأ. المساء.
Oh, now, these scholars were individuals who, in the daytime, from Fajr, they would study. They would read.
يرجع يقابل وينسخ ما فاته مما أخذه.
They were individuals who used to be persistent. They would record anything that missed them of their lessons. They were very persistent in their seeking of knowledge.
ويتجهز بدرس لغد.
They would try to prepare for the lessons for tomorrow.
يمر عليه وإن كان غير موجود استنسخه.
He said that they were those who, if they wasn't present and missed the lesson, that they would go and try to record that which they missed. Right? They try to record and write down that which they missed.
من الكتاب الذي دفع إليه.
From the book that may be given to them.
ويأخذون ما يقارب نصف الليل وهم ينسخون.
They would sometimes spend half of the night recording what they may have missed.
ثم ينامون ثلثه.
And then sleep a sixth of that night only.
ثم يقومون آخره.
And then they stand and pray the last part of the night.
يبصرون مع الفجر.
And they will stay like this up until Fajr, right? They will stay like this up until Fajr.
يدفع إليهم ما في كتب مطبوعة. يدفع إليهم الكتاب فينسخون منه ما كان لدرس يوم غد.
He said they may have stuff or books that may be things that was written that's not printed, like handwritten. And they will spend that period of time recording or writing down what they had taken from those papers and like such.
ينصرفون قبيل العشاء إلى دورهم.
They will topple themselves over, spend that whole time way up until Isha in doing this.
يعودون للصلاة ثم يخلدون بعد ذلك إلى الراحة.
He said then they'll go for the salah, like the Fajr prayer, they'll go and then they return after they did all of this, and then during the next day or that morning, and they'll go back and then they'll take a relaxation. The lesson came first, in other words.
الراحة يبدأونها بمراجعة ما سبق ومقابلته.
So this goes back to what the Shaykh was saying before. They will not allow relaxation to come first. They will strive hard upon knowledge, and then the relaxation come after it. In doing their seeking of their knowledge.
تصحيحه. ثم بعد ذلك ينسخون ما سيكون ليوم غد بخط أيديهم. ثم بعد ذلك ينامون ثم آخر الليل يقومون.
He said they would do this, they wouldn't miss the lessons, and they would go and record what they had to record and spend a long period of time doing this. Doing this with their own handwriting, not typing or anything. They would do it with handwriting what they missed. And they will spend the night, the days and the night into this, and then they go and lay down and still get up in the middle of the night to worship Allah.
ما كتب الله لهم من الليل ثم يستذكرون وينطلقون إلى المسجد.
Then they would do that time, whatever Allah write for them to spend in that time in the night, and then they'll go off into the masjid.
هذا في عهد قريب.
He said this was in this most recent time that just passed. Our scholars in this recent time that just passed, this was their case.
وكذلك كان هنا في الرياض كما ذكر لنا بعض من أدركناه من شيوخنا.
He says this is some of the things that has reached us and was said to us of some of our Shaykh, our ulama that have passed us by. This is the effort they used to put forth in the path of knowledge.
في عهد الشيخ محمد رحمه الله تعالى.
During the time of Shaykh Muhammad. He said this was like during the time of Shaykh Muhammad. I don't know who the Shaykh Muhammad he's referring to. That was the time. That's the time of Shaykh Muhammad.
إبراهيم على الشيخ.
And it also was the time of Shaykh Ibrahim al-Shaykh. Shaykh Ibrahim, he was the Mufti of Saudi before Bin Baz. This was occurred during the time of Shaykh Ibrahim al-Shaykh.
الشاهد.
The point that's being made, the point that we're making here, the point is,
هذا العلم ما يستطيع براحة الجسد.
This knowledge is something that cannot be obtained with the relaxation of the body.
تريد يأتيك العلم وأنت نايم.
You want to come to you knowledge while you're sleeping?
لا يمكن.
It's not possible.
الاجتهاد عندهم غير الاجتهاد عندنا نحن اليوم.
So you find the striving that was with them is nowhere near like the striving of them is not like our striving is nothing like their striving. Our striving is nothing like their striving.
فلأجل ذلك ذلك حصلوا ما لم نحصله نحن.
This is why you find that they reach and obtain with their knowledge that which we ain't reaching and obtaining with ours.
ثم عندهم أيضا الانتقاء للشيوخ، يختارون المشايخ، هم الذين يختارون الشيخ الفلاني مدرس في هذا الفن فيأتون إليه.
They were those who they used to meet with the scholars and be specific about their picking of them. They would say, they would hear that this sheikh over here, he's a specialist in this. So they get up and go straight up to that sheikh and sit with him.
ويلازمونه.
And they will cling to him.
والشيخ الفلاني مدرس في هذا الفن فيأتونه ويلازمونه. وأنتم حينما تقرؤون في التراجم تجدون.
He said these scholars, these type of people, when they were students, these scholars, they will hear that this particular scholar is well known in this particular field of science of the deen, and excellent in that science of the deen. So they will just go to that particular scholar, stick with him till they got what he has to offer, and cling to him like this.
العلماء والحفاظ والأئمة ينصون فلان تخرج بفلان في علم الحديث. And
they will hear that such and such an individual was a hafiz, memorizing, excellent in this particular area of knowledge. And that was enough for them. And they would just go to him and cling to him and stick with that scholar.
تخرج بفلان في الفقه.
Then you'll find that these individuals, they graduate to kharaj. They will graduate from that scholar, meaning that scholar will graduate them and say that he's skilled in this particular science now. That's how they will cling to him. That's when they will leave. When he say that he completed this science, he's excellent in this area, you can move on. And that's the only time they would leave.
خرج بفلان في الفرائض وهكذا.
This particular individual, he graduated from this scholar, skilled in fara'id, in rights of inheritance. He said, like this is how they would do.
وكذلك كما قلت الأمر المهم أيضا ما عندكم استعجال.
He said, also you find that with these scholars, those scholars that we're talking about, something that is important also is that they didn't have with them al-isti'jal. They was not hasty people. They were not hasty, impatient.
فيقرؤون ويتعلمون.
They will read and learn and study.
لا ينقطعون في ذلك أبدا.
And they will never cease from doing that ever.
فإذا نظرت إلى هذه الأمور طبقها علينا في عصرنا.
He said if we was to look at all of these affairs that we're talking about, then therefore we must make implementation of them in our time. When we look at these affairs that they achieved and what they acquired, then it's a must that you implement them now in this time.
في هذه الأيام
in these days.
الطلاب قليل من تجده يختص في هذا.
No. As the brother said, that the Shaykh said, that you find in these days that these people don't have these qualities and descriptions in these days that these scholars have had.
قليل.
Very few you'll find like this in these times.
الصبر قليل والاجتهاد قليل.
You find their traveling is little. Their traveling is little, and their patience is little.
والحرص قليل.
Their diligence is little.
والاختيار للشيخ وسيأتي معنا إن شاء الله الكلام عليه.
Their choosing of a shaykh, bad.
مع الملازمة الدائمة له.
And we're going to talk about this later, he said.
أقل من القليل. هذه الأمور كلها حصلت عندهم فحصلوا بسببها. مع الملازمة الدائمة له أقل من القليل. هذه الأمور كلها حصلت عندهم فحصلوا بسببها بعد توفيق الله لهم.
Now, he said that you find that these scholars, they clung to those, when they were students of knowledge, to the people they went to sit with of the ulama, and they would stick with them till they obtained what they needed to obtain from that scholar. And this is the reason why they obtained and acquired what they have acquired.
ونحن فقدناها ففقدنا بسببها كثيرا.
And us, you find, we're negligent and fall short in this, so we have nothing that we obtain.
الأمر الثالث.
The third matter now that we're going to talk about, the third reason.
ما هو يا مصطفى مما ذكرنا هو الفتور.
And what was that third matter that we mentioned? He said, It was futur, slacking, being weary, getting tired quick, like this.
الفتور. الإنسان عرضة للعوارض ولظروف الدهر، يأتيه الفرح ويعترضه الترح، ويأتيه الدعة ويأتيه الضيق، وتأتيه الصحة المكتملة والقوة، ويأتيه المرض ويأتيه الضعف.
The Shaykh saying and talking about the condition that the student is going to go through. He said the student is going to go through conditions of good health, bad health, sickness, wealth, no wealth, not having. That's basically said you're going to go through all types of states. The student.
فأولئك ما عرف الفتور إليهم طريقا.
But أولئك, those scholars that we're talking about, never ever did they allow to come to them slacking, getting weary in seeking knowledge.
لماذا؟
Why?
لأنهم عدوا العلم من الدين.
SubhanAllah. 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 He said that is because they bit on with their molars, so to speak, onto this knowledge because it was deen, or onto this deen with seriousness, or something like this. They bit onto it, meaning they firmly grasped onto this deen with seriousness. The knowledge. Because it is deen. This deen is knowledge, or this knowledge is deen. So they grasped onto it with their molars. They bit onto this ilm like that.
وأما نحن فالفتور عندنا كثير.
As for us, you find that slacking and laziness and giving up is with us abundantly.
لأن العلم عندنا من فضول الأمور.
He says that is because many of us view knowledge as something extra. Like it's a virtue, but fudul in that fashion is something that's like the extra stuff, the surplus. Like when you have something and you get the extra, like your dinner and then you get your cake on the side. We know how we looked at knowledge. It's just something extra. You know, like this. This is how we view ilm.
العلم عندنا من فضول الأمور.
It's from the supererogatory of affairs. It's not of the obligatory matter. He looked at it as something that's extra to have with us, not as something truly important. I'm trying to best translate what he's saying. The fudul, he's saying, of umur. We looked at it as the extra affairs, not the important affairs, just the extra things, the virtuous things, or the things that we want to have on the side, so therefore it don't become that important.
من الزوايا من المكملات.
It's from the completion of things, knowledge. It's the additives from the completion of things. That's it.
فلذلك
For that reason,
متى ما جاء جاء.
so if it comes, it comes. If it leaves, it leaves. No, so.
وإن ما جاء سيأتي.
And if it don't come, it'll come. It'll come. It'll come.
فإن ما أتى ما هو آسف عليه.
And if it comes, then we'll seek and obtain it.
أما الأولون فلا.
As for the first scholars, the scholars that just passed it, but that wasn't their case. No.
هذا لا يوجد عندهم.
This didn't exist with them.
من قبل الفجر والصغير منهم حينما تجد بعض التراجم مجهز من أم جوعة.
مجاهد.
حينما تجد بعض التراجم مجهز من أم جوعة.
أي نعم. Yeah, exactly. He said that you'll find a young person from amongst them that when you read into the Torah and the biographies of the scholars, you'll find that near, like at Fajr time or something like this, before the lesson, you'll see them always preparing themselves before it, getting prepared, you know.
وهو يتدرج في الحلق وينتقل من واحدة إلى أخرى.
He would graduate in the circles of knowledge, move from one level to the next.
إلى الظهر.
And he will to one level to the next, seeking his knowledge up until from the time of Fajr up until Dhuhr, gradually increasing himself.
ومن العصر إلى العشاء.
Then he'll go from after Asr, because he'll probably take a little resting meaning between Dhuhr and Asr, and then he'll go from Asr up until Isha.
وإذا ضعف يفرق بسبب ضعفه في بعض الدروس لعجزه عنها.
You will find that if one of them became weak from sickness or something like this, he became weak, that what he would do, out of all the darts he would go to in a day, he might leave off maybe one class or something. He won't totally cut off his knowledge. He might leave off a lesson or two or something like this, he said. It was narrated and mentioned about Imam Nawawi that he used to go to many lessons. How many? How many darts he would have in a day? 12 lessons in a day he would go to. 12! In every day he would have 12 lessons. Every day he would go. He said, and me myself I know. Some of those whom we have experiences with, he talked about what he witnessed. We know some that I've experienced with my own self, from amongst us, from some of us. He used to have 10 lessons in a day. 10 lessons in a day. And if he would become sick, he would just take 7 lessons. He'd only cut himself off from 3. He said, and he'd make up those 3, or get back to getting those extra 3, when his body get healthy again.
فيحتاج إلى أن يخلص فيه إلى الراحة وإلى أن يذهب فيه إلى بيت الخلاء وإلى أن يعالج ثيابه لأنه ما هو مثلنا عنده 15 ثوب.
He says, so, this person he'll go, and that time that he's missing his lesson, he'll be trying to medicate himself. He'll be in the bathroom, going to take care of the affairs his need to, to take care of his health, like this, for that period of time, so he can get back to his full lessons.
وعشرة ثياب عنده ثوبين.
He said, you find what many of us today, out of our comfort we have, he might have 10 thobes or 10 outfits. But then, he might only have only 2 thobes or 2, what we call these, garments. We have only 2 garments. They might have only 2 garments. For us, we got 10. We got to have 10, like this he's saying. And he'll do it like this. He wear one garment one day, and that second garment the next day. And switch them up like this, and clean one like that, and wear the next day. And he will be like this, and leave it in his house and prepare it, and have that thobe to be worn for the next day. You see him cut himself off from these affairs of the dunya because he wants to acquire the knowledge, so he don't miss his lessons. And inshallah ta'ala, with that, because the dars is an hour, the Shaykh spoke for an hour and 10 minutes, so that means 2 hours and